Music power.
How did I get into radio? Wow, Craig, how long have you got? I was 14, 15, DJing in nightclubs in Manchester. And the DJ, who was the permanent DJ in the club, kept taking breaks. Number one, I shouldn't have been in there because it was obviously an over 18s club, first of all, but I looked a bit older. And I used to fill in for him when he used to go and take his breaks. And the breaks became longer and longer and longer. And then I thought, I'm going to speak. And I did. And the owner of the club was in one night and said, I love you, man. And he fired the other guy. So yeah, that was the discotheque thing. Cut a long story short, from there, then I went on to hospital radio, whereupon you'd be broadcasting from the hospital, from the office, and the patients within the hospital in all the different wards would be listening to what you did. Playing Stairway to Heaven and Down Down was not a good option of songs. But yeah, and then from there, a very short stint at a commercial station in the UK, in those days called Piccadilly Radio. And then I just got bored with the UK. Weather was pretty crap all the time. Manchester, it rained a lot. So loved what I did, but needed a change of scenery. So went to Johannesburg on a 1980 on a 3-month return ticket and never went back. My car's still at Manchester Airport. And that's actually a true story. My father had to go and collect my car from Manchester Airport. And listened to radio. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. Loved Africa. And listened to radio. Now, listening to Capital, I found that obviously in Johannesburg on shortwave. So the other stuff I listened to I thought was pretty dreadful at the time. And then found this radio station. I went, wow, on this crackly shortwave signal. Put an audition tape together. Very, very difficult to find out where to send that to. But it was Port St. John's, where Capital was based in those days. I think my lame joke, and I'll tell you that lame joke, I love humour. I think humour is a very important part of life. I see humour in most things. And during the audition tape that I put together, I played a Cliff Richard song. I think it was Wired for Sound or whatever it might be. And I said, well, that was Cliff Richard. I said, wow, look at the way he looks. You know, he's so youthful. I'll tell you what he does. He drinks 3 bottles of oil of Olay every day. It doesn't help his looks, but he slips out of bed beautifully. And I think that got me the job. I think it was that English sense of humour. So yeah, was then I had to apply for a work permit, and that was the problem, because in South Africa you had to try and employ a South African and exhaust that option before you could employ somebody from the UK or the States or wherever. And the day before my visa expired, my 3-month return ticket, the work permit for Capital came through. I had my suitcase packed, ready to go back to the UK. So yeah, that's how it happened. And then obviously I was told by Stuart Lee, my boss at the time, my beautiful friend Stuart Lee, okay, we'll see you in Port St. John's. And I said, which way out of the car park is it? You know, this young naive boy from Manchester. And had a battered old Fiat. And my wife and I jumped in the car and we head out from Johannesburg to Port St. John's. It's a trip I think normally should take about 8-9 hours, I'm not sure. But it took us 17 hours to get there. And we arrived at 4 in the morning and Stuart Lee said, hi guys, shall I show you around the studio? And I said, show me a bed. So yeah, so that was it basically.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah, true story, every word, every word. And then became part of that incredible Capital Radio family. And it was a family, Craig, a real, true family. It was a little bit incestuous, can't lie, because out of season, you would have to socialise with the people there. So in other words, I'd be at Kevin Savage's house one night, he'd be round at mine the next. So you were limited to within your social life of who you could mix with, because there was nobody else out of season. It was dead. You know, there'd be a strange combination of things in the store there, the grocery store. You know, there'd be a packet of tampons next to the fresh chicken. You know, it was weird. It was weird, but weird and wonderful. It really, really was. Yeah, it got a bit lonely sometimes. You were given a beautiful house, which made up for it. I mean, I stayed in beautiful, beautiful accommodation. The scenery was fantastic. I mean, Port St. John's, second beach, one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. Apparently not so much these days, but in those days it was just absolutely stunning. But yeah, a bit kind of lonely and a bit cold when it was out of season, you know, because it was very desolate then. But it was, I looked around some days and just went, wow, where am I? But was looked after and taken under people's wings, like Jim Ellery, the late great Jim Ellery. I mean, he took me under his wing because I was, you know, pretty nervous about going on air, obviously, on this what seemed colossal mammoth radio station. But yeah, I trained for about, for about a month. I was doing dry runs, and then my first gig on the radio station was 1 till 6 in the morning on a program called NiteFlite. I don't know if you remember that. But yeah, it was tough as well because I couldn't really sleep before I went to the station to do the gig, you know, because I didn't want to go to bed then. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'd leave the station, go home, and it was 6:30, it was bright sunshine. So I'd take a dip in the pool, get out, and then be wide awake. So yeah, it was quite hard. 5 hours on air is a long time.